I hear a lot of people talk about the work, right? The
Mhm.
work. We got to do the work. I think, at the most foundational level, what the work is building relationships with one another, right? And so restorative justice values have the potential to be such a large component of building relationships with folks, because if we want to create organizations on a massive scale, right, mass organizations of just normal working folks that are working on a variety of issues all across the country, if we are not building relationships or building in a relationship that doesn't value just our humanness, then what are we doing, right? And we are going to have organizations with a lot of folks that are a product of this very unequal, very oppressive, right? Like you named, patriarchal, white supremacist culture. So much of these things that we have internalized, right? Like I am a cishet male who grew up around a lot of misogyny, right?
Mhm.
How are these things still internalized in myself, right? And in folks that we are recruiting that are a part of our base that have a lot of things that they need to work on. If we are just disposing of folks because they are not 100% pure in their ideology or their way of being, then we are not going to build much of a political movement. And so things are going to happen in movement spaces, and restorative justice is that framework by which we can address that conflict and actually build even stronger relationships. Because if you care about somebody, if you really care about somebody, you're going to address when they mess up, um, and you're going to help them become a better human.
Yeah, I mean, part of it speaks to having agreed upon standards, agreements, values, norms about how we want to be together. And so when harm happens, when violations, when disagreement happens, we know the ways that we're easily able to identify that harm, but we also know the ways that we're going to lean into addressing that. I'm curious, without giving away personal details about anyone,
Mhm.
what that has looked like within the context of Power U, to the extent that you can share. Works.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the most important things is having grace with folks, being in communication with folks, really listening to them, digging deep into why do you believe the things that it is that you believe, right? I think an example of this is in our own committee called Counselors Not Cops, right? We
Hmm.
are pushing to get police out of schools, right? I think most people that live in our communities don't share the idea that police actually are an oppressive institution that just brutalize working class folks, right? There are a lot of people that think we need more police because the streets are so riddled with violence, right? There's all this crime. More police equals more security. And so some of the students that come into our organization believe that police actually are here to protect and serve, right? Because that's what they say. That's what we see in TV shows, in movies. Along in that vein, we have a lot of students that come from a background of growing up in the church, right? Um, in the black communities here in Miami, I mean, church is huge, and a lot of our Christian churches are deeply homophobic, right? Power U is an organization that advocates for queer liberation, and so just like the conversation with cops, we need to be providing political education that is actually educating folks on why do I even believe these narratives and how are these narratives untrue? Who do these narratives serve? Right?
Hmm.
It is actually in my interest to believe this thing, and what is the objective reality around these things? And so, having those conversations, not in a way where we are, just like pumping information down folks' throats saying, no, what you believe is wrong, this is the objective truth, is not productive, but more being in conversation, which is a back and forth, right? What do you believe? Why is that? This is where we're coming from. This is what we have seen. These are statistics. Just being in conversation in a way that is not punitive and not shaming folks for believing the things that they believe.